Good evening, folks. I'll call the meeting to order. This is a joint meeting of the Master Plan Advisory Committee and the Planning Board for June 15th, 2023. And the meeting is being recorded. Is anybody in the audience recording? Okay, thank you. We will have this recording available on town website in a couple of days after we close out the meeting, at least by early next week for sure. And with that, I'll pass it over to Vice Chair Jessica Parker for a roll call. Please.
Marcus Phelps,
Present.
David Spina,
Here.
Doug Moglen, Randy Brown,
Here.
David DeGlory,
Here.
Bert Hanson,
Here.
Dave McWilliams,
Here.
Norm Cheever,
Here.
Patrick Jubb,
Here.
Alita De Maria, here, Michael McMahon, Scott Lehman, he's on there,
Online.
Dory Boyd, here, Ross Perry, Jessica Parker here, Corey Rowland, here, Marissa Cook Obergon, Michael Doherty, and Lucas Karen.
Okay. Thank you. With that roll call, I'll note there is no quorum, the planning board, but there is a quorum of the Master Plan Advisory Committee. So we'll proceed on to the agenda. Are there any public comments or dialogue from folks in the audience? Yes, Ken, could you pass the microphone? Please give your name and address or any comment you'd like to make.
Evening, my name is Gene Hughes, live at 49 Reading Road here in South Florida. And I have been involved in land use planning for 20 plus years. Primarily when I lived down in Charlotte, so I was located in Florida. And back in that time frame, the format that was laid out here for planning, for the future was actually developed by the University of North Carolina Urban Institute. It's been used across the country, Knoxville, different companies, Tempe, Arizona, I believe in Ames, Iowa. And it was really designed for communities 300,000 to 500,000 plus. I doubt very seriously that format works here. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I think you said that at some point the population here is somewhere around 8,900 people in Southwick, with around 1,100 people 20 years from now. Now, given that, I'll say this: Pigeon Hill Road, from Fox Highway, say down to Krebs Tea House. There are palatial homes there. And I pay somewhere in the neighborhood around $3,500 a year in taxes. My brother has a similar house in Charlotte. He pays $3,500 a year in taxes. And that's a million population in that area. Now, I went to the recent board of Georgia annual budget. And they said the overall budget increase was like 3%, almost 3%. Now, with the growth rate that you're projecting, let's say that the budget continues to increase at 3% per year, you can imagine, but your growth rate is only going up maybe 1%, 1.5% at best. You're looking at some massive tax structure. So I know that earlier there was desire, the biggest desire we want to maintain is rural agricultural, whereas the Southwick thoroughly agree in that regard. But in terms of saving the town, because right now the Southwick is taxed. People come up through Connecticut, they go into Westfield, Springfield, Pigeon Hills, things of that nature. You desperately need some kind of draw in this area for a tax base. And it was not going to come from the population because the projection is not there. It's got to be from an industrial base. Companies that employ 100, 150, 200 people, then you can address the housing issue. Not a lot of houses being built here in Southwick. I would advise you, drawing on the experience that I've had, 20+ years, planning boards, zoning board of adjustment, vice chair, I mean, dealt with every issue you can imagine, from stadiums to landfills, to schools, to multifamily, to PUDs, PIP improvements across the board. I would strongly suggest that you take a look at where you want to be first in terms of your fact-based population to make it sustainable. There was one comment, big comment that I'm concerned, this is the affordability for the elderly. I'm there. So I present that to you to rethink what the state is saying and make it work for yourself. And there's ways to do it. I don't. Be quiet. If you have any questions,
Okay, thank you. We do have, of course, the various chapters that the state is expecting to see in our master plan, and we're working on those, and we'll do the best we can. As things evolve, we do have a 20-year time frame that we're trying to work within, so we'll get at it. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so we'll move into old business. One item under old business is the June 17th workshop, which has been advertised on our webpage. I have some hard copies here that are available, and we've been coming down to the end of our community involvement part of the planning process, and we've done, I guess, as much as we can to reach that group in the 20 to 30 age category, and we'll see how things turn out on the 17th. I'd like Marissa, who's been sort of spearheading this activity, to lead us through a little bit of the details, so the master planning committee knows what is going to happen on the 17th, and the need for some help probably to make things happen or flow, and welcome whoever attends the session. So Marissa.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the event is planned for this Saturday evening over at Brassville Restaurant. And I just want to make clear and go on record that there isn't any taxpayer money being used to fund this event. This is entirely by donation of the owner of the Brass Rail. She's donating the space. And then she is giving us a very deeply discounted at cost price for refreshments, soft drinks, that is, as well as a charcuterie board. So that is something that a few of us on the committee have decided to cover. It's a very reasonable price. And then the rest of the goodies have been donated by a few businesses, a couple of farms in town. And just wanted to put that out there since that had been a question. In terms of organization, Meg Jabali, the Granby, Connecticut resident, has been very instrumental and helpful in kind of giving some structure to this. The structure that we're going with is that we're going to have 4 different stations. So they're going to act as tables in the ballroom. So station 1 is going to be cards with goals that are connected to the town-built environment. They're just short lines in very readable, accessible language. And the idea is to have folks set those cards out and put them in order of importance. It's a pretty straightforward activity, but the idea is that if people are dropping in and out of this event between 5 and 7, I mean, ideally, folks could stay for the whole time, but we realize that being Saturday evening, a weekend, day before Father's Day, a few folks have asked if they can just drop in and participate for an hour and say their piece. And I said, absolutely. So it's based on that we develop these stations. So folks would stay at each station between 10-15 minutes and then move on. And if they're done beforehand, they can certainly move on to the next station. So station 1, I foresee meeting 1 or 2 people just to kind of orient folks as to what the activity is. It's pretty self-explanatory, but at the same time, it's just nice to have somebody there. So station 2 is the "Did we hear you?" Station, and that's printing out statements from Ken's presentation on June 1st. So that's a little bit more dense in terms of having folks read through things, but I've broken it down in the chapters that Ken has presented them in, so folks can kind of gravitate to the areas that they're interested in. Again, being mindful of people's bandwidth on a Saturday evening. Some folks feel okay about some parts of the plan and they're just concerned about one particular chapter, so we may get feedback on just that chapter for one person. You know, it's kind of a flexible arrangement in terms of having folks read through the comments, read the actual language that PVPC has developed and give us feedback on what that language is. So we have a smiley face. I'm sorry, that's for the next station. So the way that we have this structured, there'll be kind of like a means for people to disagree with the statement. If they agree with it, that's kind of by default. And if they want to rephrase the statement, if there's something within those statements that PVPC has presented us that they just may want to tweak, we're going to give them that opportunity. I think there's something very empowering about feeling that you have found a gap or a crack in something. I think it's an opportunity for conversation. And at the very least, when I presented the idea to Ken, understanding the stage that they're at in the editing process for these drafts, it felt right to kind of use the language that PVPC has already developed and then have some contributions in terms of rephrasing. It wouldn't be too much work, hopefully, for PVPC to take that rephrase. So it seems like a happy medium. Station 3 is photographs, so very visual. It's architectural precedents. This is an activity that Meg has done on a few different occasions in Granby and in other places. And just taking photos or presenting photos of architectural precedents in other towns. And this can range, you know, from photos of infrastructure to how certain sidewalks look in other communities, to community centers, the small businesses, mixed use buildings, and having folks kind of just grade with stickers. I have smiley face stickers that are very smiley, kind of, you know, not frowning, but just a little bit neutral and placid, and then one that is an outright frown. So an easy way for folks to kind of just underneath the pictures, note their opinion, and there will be sticky notes there should they actually wish to kind of go into more detail. And then the fourth station is a kid station / drawing station. A few folks have asked if they can bring children. I asked Jen Alaska, she said that's okay. I cleared it with our chairman. Again, trying to be mindful that we are attempting to be inclusive and have people come in with their family. These are people who are, you know, in the ages between 30 and 40. Having kids come along with you on a Saturday afternoon is important. So that table will be there for the kids. So I'm thinking about 2 folks per table. Meg Jabali will be there as well to assist, so we can certainly count on her. So I'll be at one of the tables. I don't know if there's, Mr. Chairman had mentioned Randy perhaps being a facilitator at one of the tables. Dave, I know you mentioned being there. I'm not sure who else is planning on attending, but it'd be good to set that up now so that we kind of hit the ground running Saturday evening.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Okay, so
Jessica.
great. I think so. That sets us up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6. Okay, and
Why don't we say, you know, who, like station 1 is the cards.
right,
People are going to arrange them in some priority.
correct. Yes.
So I think we was
Yeah,
possibly Randy.
possibly.
could be
Yeah.
there.
Not the kid station?
If you're really itching to draw
Wow.
something, then by all means.
You want anything but the kids station. Uh-oh. So Randy, you want to do children?
I'll be there.
I just thought we'd have it, you know,
That's
now,
Yeah,
so.
no, this is great.
So when they walk in the door, there.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
With the station 1, Randy?
Sure.
Great.
okay,
Great.
Randy's station 1 cards.
Anyone else want to help Randy at station 1? Because I'm gonna have the copies of the cards to kind of keep things moving along, so.
I don't mind helping you with that, unless you want me elsewhere.
Dave,
That's great.
Dave, okay,
I'll keep it in mind.
So then we have station 2, which is, helping.
Yeah, the statements, the printed PVPC statements,
EVPC statements.
The printed PVPC statements, yes, I would like to do that just to make sure that the format, that's a little bit more of a denser explanation in terms of how we want folks to rate or rephrase, so I'd like to be on hand to make sure that we have a flow there, but I'd love someone else's support as well to make sure that.
I can be there,
Great,
okay?
excellent,
All right.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Station 3, annotating, the photos of architectural precedents, that was fun.
It's gonna have to be you, Dory, if you don't want kids.
We're down to 2 stations. Getting serious.
Okay, great.
Pictures sound interesting.
Yeah, they are, they're fun, yeah. it's a
So
really fun
Dory
station.
and Jessica.
Yeah. And station 4 kids, I mean, Meg Bailey said she'd happily,
Oh, Meg,
Oh, yeah. Meg said she would do that. for
that might
someone
be
else.
good because she has kind of a better sense of how that
Yeah.
might operate.
Yeah.
Sort of outside of the box for,
She may bring her own kids too, who are in that age group to kind of,
okay,
populate the table and invite other kids to come there and sit, so maybe that will be enough with one person, and then there are other folks there, and we see it gets full. and she needs
unless
some
there's
support.
other people who really want to help out.
Help some kids draw.
We might draft on. the
It's all about the kids, isn't it?
It's the future, right? So,
They're gonna be dealing with.
My daughter will be there too, so at least Meg's kids and mine
okay, so.
make it look like there's another.
Yeah, they can kind of manage the table then, good, all right, very good. So yeah, each table is gonna have supplies, I'm bringing that in, I'm going to show up at around 4 o'clock, there's a group in the ballroom until 4:30. Our event starts at 5, so I'll just be there half an hour before to start getting everything set up, but we would have to wait for that group to leave at 4:30 and then kind of use that half hour to set up, but I think it's fairly straightforward, so if folks wanted to get there, say maybe 4:30 to get familiarized with the stations and just make sure you understand the flow, that would be great, and, yeah, if anyone else can attend as well, spread the word, so.
Well, we've got a good representation. I'm very impressed with folks hanging in there and coming to these meetings. I mean, this is an awesome turnout.
I mean,
For the committee.
honestly, I wish it was earlier. I have 2 graduations
It's a
parties,
tough
like,
time of year.
if those earlier, I mean, I might show up at the tail end, but
And, yeah, any amount of
hats
time.
off to everybody for doing this, like, honestly. I feel bad that I can't.
You profusely shared it on social media and I saw several people hit, they were attending. So thank you for your
Oh,
efforts.
thank you.
It takes a team,
Spread
you
the
know?
word, yeah.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you so much, Patrick.
Okay, any questions from members, committee members? Oh, Corey. Yes. Green light on?
So I agree, great job in throwing this together in a short time. My question is on station 2, the did we hear you? So when we had the public here 2 weeks ago, the items that were on the wall, it felt like it was missing a lot of what we had been working on for a very, a long time. It was, and some of that showed up in the comments that the residents who attended put, as well as people here putting up their own stickers. So are we able to kind of sort of beat those up a little bit from where they were, or is that something the APC can do? I don't know, but it felt half finished, the stuff that was on the wall compared to the depth of work that's been done, depth and breadth of work that's been done.
I agree, and thank you for asking that, and that reminds me, so, the statements that I pulled for station 2, maybe Ken can help me answer this, it was the presentation that you used first that was uploaded on the drive, and then I kind of pulled from that, as well as the draft chapters that are currently online. Were any of those updated? Because I literally just pulled all the goals, all the objectives, and kind of just put them in this,
Those, yes.
yeah.
I think as I went, you sent the, because I didn't print out the materials. In a quick look, it looked like we captured, both the actions as well as the objectives and the goals. So presumably it is a reflection of, the goal, objective, and
Right.
the actions that were identified in the chapters, as well as the matrix that, I've been sharing and that the committee has been responding to, has responded to.
Right.
So you have captured it. What I will say to your, Corey's point is the missing conversation. I can put those onto a Word document and share them. They are not on that. I was hoping that, depending on what ended up happening from this evening to file them, that, so if I make that for, to include the items that were already kind of addressed in the previous meeting. I think it's just a matter of putting those statements on paper.
How are we getting feedback? I think the important thing is to get input from people who are there. Did we hear you? They're gonna see these things, but then are they responding by ranking things or sticky note, comments, or how is that?
Yes, so I'm looking at, the chapter for sustainability and climate change, which is, all of the chapters are represented at station 2. So, the prompt here is, how can any of the statements, below capture your perspective better? And as Ken said, I used the formula of the goals, objectives, and actions that were interspersed in the presentation of June 1st, as well as the actual draft chapter that's up on the Google Drive. So if you disagree with any statements, please take an index card and write down the number of the statement and write down how you would rephrase it. And then there's, kind of prompts. What is missing from this chapter? Who is being left out? Please offer your opinion on an index card. And each of those points from the goal, the objectives and actions are numbered. And they have like a little letter next to them too, so that when we do collect that data, we can correlate it to the chapter, and it should be pretty easy. And I was hoping that visually as well, if people, because I broke it down piece by piece, that people wouldn't have to disagree with the whole chapter. They could literally just take one component of the chapter, like one objective or one action or even a goal, and rephrase that. So that's how we'd be collecting the data and then correlating it to the correct chapter.
I realize you have less than 48 hours to work with, but anything that gets revised tonight, do you have time to like Marcus and I completely changed stuff in our chapter from what was posted, so.
Right.
Are you gonna be able to incorporate those changes for Saturday?
Realistically, I don't think so, just because Ken, did us a great service and printed everything ahead of time, unless there's some drastic changes. Then, I'd be happy to entertain that, but I'm not sure in terms of turnaround time. That would give us just kind of tomorrow to work with, but, I'm certainly open to that if the committee feels that something does need to drastically be updated in order for it to be accurate and presented to this, public that is attending, then by all means, let's do it.
Is the public gonna see these drafts, or is this just another input from the public?
No, this is, you can see it. This is exactly what the public is going to see.
Yeah, so it's not the actual full chapter. We can still take what they get on Saturday and put it in,
Is it even the action part, like the
Yeah.
last page?
I'm wondering,
It's not the whole text.
is there someone logged on to Zoom now that I may send the document to? I'm not actually logged on to Zoom. Just, or either one. Okay, I'll send it right now, just so that you folks have an
Yeah,
idea
I
of the
think we
format,
can,
and then you can.
adjust it however, if
Yeah.
there's something that maybe we had talked about taking out and some, people are saying, no, it's important, so whatever. We can keep it.
So,
Who's working on this? Oh, station 2.
oh.
Ah, wait a minute.
Randy, did you want?
I think they.
I'll take the kids.
I mean,
That's why I want
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds intimidating, but when you see the format, I think, I'm trying to remember as well, people are going through the stations, they hopefully, understand that there's a time frame to being at a station. And we kind of maintain a flow. So again, I don't expect that folks
just based off of the reaction that we had that night 2 weeks ago, I didn't necessarily see folks disagreeing with things. I mean, yeah, there were some disagreements, but there were more so additions to Corey's point, so, but if we need to reformat it, then we'll do that tonight and try to get it printed. So I sent it to you guys. Let's see, did it go through? Okay, yeah, whoever can open it and share the screen. Thank you. Looks very different.
Oh, there, like, yeah.
Right, so I pulled this from, again, the chapters themselves, which are up on the Google Drive, and then, Ken's presentation, which already overlaps with what is in the chapters in terms of goals and objectives. The chapters just, flesh out the actual actions. So in the interest of kind of not getting people caught up in what an objective or action is necessarily, and kind of going into the semantics of that, I combine objectives and actions. Because again, I think the idea is to get people thinking about the ideas and the phrasing rather than the steps per se. I think the purpose of this event to get that content, and then we can go from there, so. Who did this chapter? Who's in charge?
Jessica Parker and Bert Hanson.
Maybe I should have said were you guys doing housing or,
Yeah.
okay, housing, okay. Maybe I should have said housing.
Well, I think people, there's so much there.
Yeah.
I think the people are gonna key in on the chapter as to probably what their interest is, you know, and they can see what's in the different chapters. So I don't see one person being able to really, deal with the whole, because there's a lot of information there. It's pretty heavy with information. But we need to see if there are any gaps and anything we missed that's out there. Folks are interested in. Okay. Thank you. In the interest of time, I'd like to move on to the new business area. We had set on the agenda time for a work session. I know some folks did not get their draft chapters in a timely manner in order to get together before this meeting. So we did get climate change and sustainability, economic development, housing, and open space and natural resources. Chapters were available reasonably time-wise to look over and get together and discuss. And then more recently, the transportation and mobility, land use, public services and facilities, historic and cultural resources. Those chapters became available. Plus, I'll mention the introduction and vision. There wasn't a draft chapter. Was there a draft chapter on that, or that was you did have one to look at? Okay. So, as far as the work session and using it sometime anyway, I'm thinking half hour initially for the teams to sit and look at the material. And I think for tonight to focus on the vision statement. So even if people just receive their chapter information, try to craft a vision statement. because I'd like to have a report back from whatever teams are willing to report back. We don't have to hear from all the teams tonight, because I can see this continuing on into July. So, if people understand that, some of the chapters, the information available ahead of time, and people have gotten together, you're gonna have more to present to the committee in the way of how you may have formatted the chapter, if you wanted to change some things. I know, speaking for Dory and myself, we looked at Cheshire and Westfield for their housing, kind of how they formatted things, and changed some terminology. We added a goal, shifted some action or items around. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that would happen. So I'm thinking a half hour till 8 o'clock. Folks get together and discuss what more you want to work on, or at least initially work on something. Then we'll come back and each team, I'm thinking maybe 5 minutes to give us the highlights. Obviously, introduction and vision, I think, should kind of go first with an overview and how you see things fitting and going there, and what you need in the way of information if there's some gaps. And then from there, I guess we'll just look for volunteers, whoever wants to lend their information for 5 minutes or so. And I'd like to try to finish everything at a reasonable hour this evening. I know we try to stay with about a 2.5 hour meeting, so. Anyway, any comments, thoughts? So, with that said, I guess everybody is here. Scott, you may have to talk to yourself a little bit, but.
Expert advice you'll get. That's right. We'll get the right.
Or you can talk with John, who's right there next to you, you could bounce some things off him, whatever. But the other teams, of course, Corey Rowland and Alita Di Maria have the introduction overview. Dave Spina, Roz Terry, the land use. Marcus Phelps, Dory Boyd, housing. Michael McMahon, Scott Lehman, economic development. Doug Moglen, Norm Cheever, cultural and history. Marissa Cook Obregon and Dave McWilliams, natural resources, open space. Randy Brown, John Goddard. Oh, sorry, Scott. John's gonna have to sit here. Yeah. Randy Brown, John Goddard, transportation. David B. Delory and Patrick Judd, public facilities and services. Jessica Parker and Bert Hansen, climate and sustainability. So thank you for volunteering for those items, chapters. And with that, let's break up. For those online, what are we going to do, John? Play some music or?
Turn off the microphone, but post the chat right now saying we're in work session till roughly 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Come back.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. start things up again?
We are now live.
Oh, we are live. All right, wow. So that half hour went by pretty fast.
That pizza was really good. Thank you, Mark.
And I think, like I said, some people were at a disadvantage because they just got the draft material in the last day or two. So not expecting to have everything buttoned up. And I think just to begin, for the overview, obviously, try to have a vision for your chapter. And then within that, how you feel you want to address the various items. I'd like to start on, I think, with Corey and Alita for the overall vision and introduction to the plan.
Sure, I'm just logging in.
So if folks can put things up on the screen, that's great, but if you can't, not the end of the world. And if you can, 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. I know some of the items may be more farther or be farther along, but just to kind of cast the vision and then an overview of how you're working on the chapter. Do that.
Okay.
Is the green light on?
So what we've got here is the top, we looked at a couple of other master plans and sort of picked the best of the best so that the introduction tells the story, gets people interested in what they're going to read, and also sort of gives them a quick heads up on how to read it, right? So all the things that we put together. So most start off with acknowledgements, which I thought should come from Marcus and John. And then we'll write the executive summary, but you write executive summaries at the end, right? After all the chapters are done, and you pull the best of the best. And I sort of just captured a few thoughts that I wanted to include when we write the executive summary. So to talk about how this isn't something that is expected to never change over the 20 years, that it's a living document, that we believe that it could be achieved with the recommended action items or other action items. And that we recognize, though, that trends change, right? There are things 3 years from now that may be an impactful trend, external trend that we don't know about, so that we recommend that this plan be reviewed every 3 years. Then Ken just recommended to us, and Aaliyah's gonna take this and add this in, is to just have the boring information is, you know, like, why are we doing this? Because of the MGL number 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the introduction, there was a nice thing, I think it was in the Cheshire one, that it said, you know, just Southwick today, or some real fundamental, like, this is how big we are, and these are some other interesting things, not long, because it's probably all gonna be covered in the chapters, just sort of a baseline of who we are. And then, we talked a little bit about what a master plan is, and the fact this is not Southwick's first go-around, and that how we came to be. And then again, talking about a little bit more about, who the committee is. And then the planning process, so, talking about the different categories, so I threw the pestle diagram in here. And then talk about where we went from there, like how much we involved the town. I think we involved the town in a commendable amount. between the surveys and the visioning, and then the did we hear you and everything. And then, and Ken confirmed with me that his graphic artists are gonna actually incorporate these, so we sort of threw these in here, and we've been actually spending a lot of time with this today, because this is sort of a summary of all the different SWATs that came out of different visioning groups. And the interesting thing was the strengths were almost unanimous in every visioning group, but the others were not. So we had to try to pull the themes and the spirit of what people were trying to say. It was a little, the opportunities was a little challenging because opportunities are externally driven and most people didn't answer that way. So we worded it in a way that felt like it was a bit of an external. And then basically how to read this document, teeing up for all of your chapters, that these are the chapters that we'll go through. Try to put a little color in there because at this point it's a lot of words. And I hope you noticed under cultural and historical, I have a little dancing person. And then these are the way we had agreed to structure the chapters, and then beginnings, the overview, the vision statement, and sort of strategic themes that we all had done. And then, so that's where we are now. And then as I said, once all the chapters are done, then we'll sort of button up the beginning and button up the transition to the chapters, but it helps to see. I don't know if you have anything about that. Yeah.
Any comments from the committee?
I have one. There was some mention in there about.
Ross, please.
There was a mention of it being, reviewed or changed or something every 3 years. I don't think you can do that without bringing the committee together again. Am I wrong about that?
It just says recommend, it didn't say we
Yeah,
will.
but who would do that, is my question. Like, who would?
The planning board.
Planning board?
Within the planning board commission.
Okay. I mean, I don't know that once you have it approved by the town vote or whatever, I'm not sure you can.
Well,
The town isn't. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding. Maybe I'm hearing it wrong.
Yeah, the plan is gonna be adopted, approved by the planning board. So they're kind of the keeper of the plan. I had a thought, and I don't know where it's gonna get interjected, that the chief administrative officer should be the overseer of the plan. And I forget how we're gonna work that, but we need to work on the implementation. Work with that. Ken, the implementation.
Yeah, so there is an action that's identified in the public facilities and services chapter. And yeah, typically, and so with that said, there's both an action on how to create your master plan implementation committee. But then there is a like final kind of overarching, either in presentation as a matrix or, you know, in any other way where we would identify how, talking about implementation, and if you're identifying maybe as a committee that the chief administrative officer is that entity, then, you know, we make sure that we put that there.
And, you know, obviously, the planning board has got to be on board. I know Jessica Thornton had shared a training session she went to on implementation. So we probably should look in there to see what is available or what's been thought about as far as keeping the plan alive, you know. If it's how it's included in activities that we do all the time, and then at a particular time every year, have like a look at, are we making progress? Are we, you know, doing good things?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want me to put the chief administrative officer, or that's what's your? Does you know about your wish?
Mr. Mogul is here, and actually, you know, how it all works, right? The hierarchy of the organization.
For the town itself?
Yeah.
Well, it's, by structure today, the select board is the chief administrative. Is the executive branch of government in the town, and they retain the CAO. As the, basically runs, he or she runs the town day to day. And then town meeting is your legislative branch. So. We had talked briefly, in one of the select board meetings of recent. About, what a master plan implementation committee would look like. But we haven't really had any further discussions, and with the reorganization of the select board in the last several weeks, it will be a recurring topic. Under goals and objectives.
Thank you. Sorry to add too much verbiage, but anyway, I appreciate that. Presentation right on time. The next one I had on the list here, at least, is climate change and sustainability. Do we have, something to share?
Do you care or do you?
No, go ahead.
We are not ready to commit to a vision statement this evening. What we were kind of focusing on, is kind of breaking down some of the objectives to the actions and making sure that they align to the actions. I think we have some thoughts about maybe needing to add, an objective related to natural resources, because there's some actions related to natural resources that don't necessarily tie back to the 3 objectives that are listed for the chapter. So we're kind of working through matching those up and maybe adding some objectives, needing some actions, and we wanted to do that before we finalize our vision statement. Add anything?
Which aligns with what Dory just said about,
That's Corey.
I'm sorry. Dory said.
Sorry.
Well, it's the plan to kind of, and you write the executive summary, so we, in a sort of mini way, that's the same idea.
Thank you for catching us up on time. Let's see. Economic development, that'd be Scott, that's in the room here anyway.
So, I am, not fully prepared to report on this. I met with my kid, but, there are, some items here that I think we need to expand on, the discussion, or we had a lot of the respondents, 81% of them, want us to encourage agricultural, growth in our town. And I don't think we speak, there's no action items here, or no, I don't think there's enough meat, I guess, here on the action items that we do have. So I think we have a little bit of homework to do there.
Any vision? Or you not until you haven't met with Michael at all?
I have.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be good if you get together on that for sure.
I'll reach out tomorrow.
Housing, Dory is going to share a few things.
I don't know how to share my screen in Zoom.
John, share.
screen. Oh, great.
And maybe microphone too. Could you help her there? And is it on? Green?
It's on.
All right.
So we did have a vision statement that we are comfortable reading for tonight. Southwick has diverse housing options and designs that accommodate various stages of income levels, promoting sustainable building materials and methods, creating a community where residents can grow and live for a lifetime. I've got it on my phone, 1 second. And then, kind of a general term, in our whole chapter, we made a point, Ken last time spoke to capital A affordability and lowercase affordability. So we made a point that when we used affordability, it was only the capital A affordability, affordable housing to the HUD definitions. When we meant lowercase affordability, we used other words like financially attainable, so that we were clear when we were talking about affordable housing, it was capital A affordable, not anything else. In ours, it was drafted with 2 goals, sorry for the scrolling. So it was drafted as 2 goals originally. We reworded goal number 1, to really play up on the conservation part of building regulations. So we reworded it to adequate housing stock that protects and maintains the community's scenic, natural, and historic resources. And then goal 2 sort of combined capital A affordability and housing for seniors, and didn't speak to housing for young families, new families, anybody on the other end of the spectrum. So we split out goal 2 and goal 3. Goal 2 is now promote housing availability in Southwick that is financially attainable for and attractive to all ages and household constellations seeking to reside in town. We went back and forth about 1 goal for the young demographic and 1 goal for the aging demographic, and we kind of saw that the actions overlapped in so many places that it just made sense to put it back into the same goal. And then on the 3rd goal, we're speaking to capital A affordability, increase affordable housing to make progress towards the Mass General Law chapter, that's not chapter 40B, right? Am I mixing those? Towards the Mass General Law chapter 40B affordability housing goal of 10% in town. We did not think it was realistic to meet the 10%. We just wanted to show that we were going to make progress towards it. And then, as you can see highlighted on here, we were really struggling with the objectives. We didn't really feel like they were additive, so we're kind of recommending we just have goals and actions. We could have talked in circles around each other about objectives, and then we were like, well, that's an action, that's an action, that's an action, and we were really struggling there. So I don't know if any other groups felt the same way. And then like when Jess talked about her presentation, she said, if you're gonna use objectives, they should be smart. And then none of ours were smart and they were actions.
We didn't have goals and actions and the list of things that are going to.
Are drafted.
All of them do, I believe, well, ours did as well.
So we had agreed on the current state, insights from trends and residential input, issues and opportunities, strategy and action.
Yeah, all of our chapters have goals, objectives, and actions. So we killed our objectives.
Yeah, that wasn't what we finally ended up on, because we had that same discussion, what's an objective, what's an action, so.
Yeah.
If you, when we post the vision, that's the bullets that I have on page 4 are how the chapters, we had all agreed the chapters that we set up.
So I guess we're in agreement, no objectives.
So we want to have the chapters follow that format there.
Do you have goals and actions or just actions?
Says the current, so in case you want to jot it down, do you want me to?
I can read. I'll email the.
Yeah, it's on page right under the funky diagram.
So it's
There's
more
no,
than
there's
just
no
goals.
objectives, there's strategy, which is high level, and then actions, which is how are we gonna do the strategy? Because it just felt like the same exact debate was a month ago or whatever we agreed, that we weren't gonna do objectives and actions.
Strategy and actions.
Right, current state, insights from trends and input, issues and opportunities, strategy, actions.
So here, we're just using the word goal and actions. We can just change that to strategy and actions.
Yeah.
So strategy instead of goal. And then we're good.
You'll still send us. The only other had one other item on the,
I did, yeah.
okay.
So here, ours was presented with 5 subheaders under each action. We liked Westfield's terminology where they use lead parties, support parties, and time frame. And then we removed funding and resources because we felt like the implementation committee or the lead parties needed to do that during, and we didn't want to be so prescriptive telling them this is exactly how you're going to pay for it. That kind of needed their own research. And that was our note.
I like that.
A lot more concise than neither looking.
I'm good.
Good. All right, thank you. Next one was open space and natural resources.
So I'm gonna jump in. We did come up with a vision statement, so I will read that. It's, I don't know if it's carved in stone yet, but I think it's kind of covering both the open space and the recreation side. So through the implementation of the Southwick Open Space and Recreation Master Plan, we envision a vibrant and sustainable community that cherishes natural beauty, promotes healthy lifestyles, fosters a strong sense of community, and enriches the lives of its residents and visitors alike.
I like it.
Chat GTP. Gotta go with what's available to you, right?
So we have a vision statement there. All right. Any other,
We have that for 4 hours.
I got it.
any other comments on format or brainstorms, good stuff you can add to format?
Well, I think we kind of were fumbling over the goals and the objectives as well. It just seems like they were kind of redundant. And for our chapter, which seemed odd, we had one goal, 3 objectives, and then a ton of actions. And I think when we're looking at open space and recreation, there may be more.
So are you gonna try to add, or have some more additional goals?
I think it's
What-
gonna be,
more specific?
we're gonna change some of the objectives are more like goals, you know, and just for an example, right? We had spent a lot of time talking about creating an educational opportunity for the citizens of this town to better understand what open spaces and recreations and their value to them as citizens of the town, but there really wasn't much in there. So we want to make sure that that's one of our goals is ongoing education to the community. But there was a bunch of other stuff that we had changed.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of using language that also kind of is reflective of modern day ecology and stewardship, you know, just incorporating language like native plant species. I mean, those are kind of tangible things that the Conservation Commission can use in terms of directives to folks who are in front of that board. And then there were some things in here as well, where on a couple of occasions, the primary responsible party, and I really do like the way that you guys streamlined it. I think the way Westfield did it too was a lot less kind of funky. We found that it wasn't necessarily the Conservation Commission that should be the designated lead party, but Board of Health. There's a lot of kind of intersection with lake water quality as well as working with septic systems, erosion, algal blooms. So to us, it seems, well, it's good to have conservation as some of the other entities, but for some of these, it stood out that Board of Health was very important. So maybe some food for thought for us in terms of the correlation between wellness, health, and natural resources. That was an interesting angle that we discovered this evening. We'll keep exploring it.
All right, transfer.
I have a quick question, because I think it ties in with what Tori had said, maybe, because that's a good point. Would it make sense to kind of use what she said, and she took it off the screen before I wrote it all down, but there was like a lead party and then another party and.
So we had lead party, support parties, and then time frame. And we made sure to even define short term was 5 years, medium term was 10 years, long term was 15 years, so that we all used the same, like. Short term to you is 6 months, but it might be 12 years to someone else.
Sure, but I think that might dovetail nicely with exactly what she just said, where responsibilities or who owns what, you know, overlap, where someone needs to lead it though, and then work collaboratively with that other board or commission or organization to bring it to fruition. So I think that to take what Dory had said, was that from Westfield originally?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like an excellent idea.
So, but one question on the timeframes, right? Because when we looked at one of ours, it's ongoing, right? So it's not a short-term, long-term, it's an ongoing goal, right? And it's actually something that's probably in practice right now. Which one was that? So the first action they had was consider regulatory changes that limit the removal of vegetation on private properties abutting the Congamon Lakes and that specified for plants. So that's where we added the native, but consider regulations, it's already regulated, right? So I think continue regulating is what we changed it to, because we already have a local bylaw about working within the buffer zones. So, you know, we may change regulations down the road, but there's one now, and we want to continue that throughout the life of this. So where does that fit into 1 to 5, 5 to?
Yeah,
Timeframe would just be ongoing.
yeah, I think that's an available terminology.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, because I just want to make sure, I think. there's
I mean, we
a
could
couple-
say current, comma, ongoing, if you wanted to.
Yeah,
Right, because if the idea is for this to be a roadmap and thinking about when this gets to the planning board, I mean, they're like a body that adjudicates, so it's like, we wouldn't want them to waste time necessarily on trying to rewrite something that may already be in existence, so it felt counterintuitive to have something that's already ongoing for a future master plan, but maybe it takes some groundwork for the planning board to understand what's already there and then build on that accordingly, I don't know.
I mean, I think it's important in the plan to say, keep doing what we're doing.
Right,
That is the plan.
Clean it to go backwards.
right.
Okay, let's jump over to transportation and mobility.
So John and I got this document today, so we both had a little chance to review it before the meeting. But we spent our time today focusing on the vision statement, so I'll read that off. And then I think both of us will want more time to review the rest of the document. So our vision for transportation mobility is to promote easy and safe connectivity between its residential communities and many attractions, providing for the protection and enhancement of the quality of life to people, for people to live, work, and visit. So we are open to suggestions.
I'm sure when we see it on paper, somebody will think of something else to say. Or to add or change or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's. Yeah. Anything else you're listening to the discussions about the format and,
I think it'll be helpful if we send a format, maybe an email to everybody, so as you review these documents, we can format them.
do you have several goals or how many?
There were 2 goals.
Two goals.
And each goal had several, 2 or 3 objectives, and then like the first goal had 7 or 8 actions, 9 actions.
Thank you. Land use.
So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so at this juncture, we're gonna request an extension. So yeah, we got some general, we have a cloud. Second, we got some general ideas of the overall things. Yeah, we just got our section here just earlier today, so we're still working through a lot of the front matter and.
Yeah, we
whatnot.
didn't go to the back and start.
And so, yeah.
But in general, though, we were saying like that we have versatility and we continue that. Working with business, recreation, open space, residential, like it all has to, we already have it, just have to maybe tweak it and continue it.
Yeah, everything spans.
Yeah.
Good.
So it's work in progress.
Yeah. Who's next? Where's it going?
Oh,
Pass the baton.
we could go to Patrick.
Or Dave.
Oh, Dave's right there. He's close to the mic. No, it's passing it to Patrick.
Very nice.
I just got it today, so I have it done. Yeah, we're the same. We are in beginning stages, so we really don't have a vision statement. I just kind of thought this up quick. So the quick vision and rough draft is to enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Southwick with up-to-date adequate resources and infrastructure. We kind of, before thumbing through the documents, made a pros and cons list, pros being police, fire, EMS, schools, the buildings are in great shape, you know, they have been and, you know, currently are undergoing, you know, roof and HVAC and everything else. Some cons we're talking about, which we're working on, obviously the hot topic in town is the water restrictions, no offense or anything. So, you know, different resources like natural gas, not being everywhere, sidewalks, different kind of things that we're gonna work on to kind of tweak the infrastructure.
And you're gonna have some overlap with,
Yeah, I
the
think,
transportation and
yeah, I think,
mobility
yeah,
as it relates to
I think,
sidewalks and, yeah.
yeah, I think public service, honestly, it's probably the crust on the pie. Like, I think it's everything that surrounds internal Southwick. If I may, like, that's my opinion.
Could we have the mic over there to this group here, which is our historic and cultural resources? There you go. You should be on.
We do have a vision statement. We're happy to that. Southwick will be a vibrant, uniquely beautiful, small community that balances respect for our past, art and culture, and future progress. Well, as far as we got, we have 2 goals in our package. We got a lot of, I have a lot of issues with not a lot of smart goals. But we'll correct those. That's about it. Anything to add?
I started to read through the draft and we need to call out that we also have an organization in town that's not mentioned in the document with the Southwick Historical Society that owns some of the historical buildings in town as well. And is a key partner with the Historical Commission. So I noted it, we should get that added to the document. Oh, okay. I forgot you were watching me.
That'll come into play when you have the lead party and the supporting party. Or
Correct, but it should be called out in the beginning, then yeah, they do have a role, a significant role to play.
Great. Okay, we made it through the list. Appreciate everybody's efforts and we'll certainly move ahead. Any of the editing, I guess, that goes on the materials that has been was sent over by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Ken, how do you want us to, mark that up? Because there are, pieces that people are wanting to edit and add and so forth, so.
Well, he's been working on the Google document and I've seen some of the edits that he's posting. Dory was working off the Word document. I think as you want to share with me, I have done it many different ways. You can send me the PDF marked up, you can check it that way. You can send, I can review the Google changes that you can Google Drive. Or if you want to scan, I can do that.
What's easiest for you?
That's a good question. I would accommodate it for the change one, or I wanted to change the measure. I think if you were to work in the Word document that John had shared with you, that might be the easiest. Because that way I can at least incorporate the comments that you and your partner may have be wanting to address. That might be.
So I have a question about that, right? So when we're doing these edits and we've decided just tonight that we're making a couple of format changes, Do you want us to take on those format changes in our own chapters, or do you want to do it systemically throughout all of them and then redistribute them?
I think you wanna do it, otherwise you're gonna look at this and feel like you're not done with it. Cause if you don't change those, you're not gonna be able to populate them, like PVC, EVPC might not know.
Where we're gonna put them, right, yeah.
So, in the next couple of weeks, do that editing and send it over to Ken. And that way we'll have some refresh documents before the next meeting. And, keep moving forward. How did people feel about the work session? Did you need, was that useful to?
Was, we
have
just
the
needed
time?
the content sooner, that's all.
Yeah. So everyone has the content now. Make some edits, whatever you want to feedback. And the key, I think, is the vision statements and then following the new format and then your actions. How many you want to put where?
And do we get this back to Ken before the next meeting, or like, what's the timetable?
Yeah, process. The next meeting is July 5th.
Six.
Pardon?
Six,
Is it the 6th?
and the 4th is Tuesday.
The agenda's right here, it's a 6.
Oh, I should read the agenda. The next meeting is July.
You do get corrected.
I was rushing, right? We have one more day. So,
Marcus, can I say something? Sorry to keep
Yeah.
along it. So as I've been hearing the starts to the vision statements or seeing them, I just have one comment. In my opinion, it should look like the vision statements are unified, and I think they're gonna come in different voices, and I hate to add more work. But is the vision statement, should it like ultimately be written by one person or a group of people to have one unified voice, tone? I mean, tense, some people are writing in present tense, some in future. I'm worried it's gonna not feel cohesive.
do we have an editor? Yeah, we need to have it in.
Well, yeah, someone who started out with
Yeah.
Southwick will be, or something, or like even mentioned Southwick in it, said we,
Right.
you know, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I agree, like, I think one vision, one mission, like, I think if you, to your point, if you break out too many, it's.
Like, I'm happy to be part of a group of like a couple of people that want to take the vision statements and then try to edit them. I mean, I'll volunteer, like, once they're written, to try to make them in the same voice if anybody wants to.
Well, Westfield follows a particular format, right? So can we just kind of agree to follow something like that? I mean, they have a specific active structure, right? Like we will or something.
They start theirs with the envision.
Or we envision. Yeah, so could we just agree to do something like that and then?
It's not really how a vision statement is.
It should be present tense, like Southwick is, Southwick has.
Yeah, whatever it is, but kind of have that prefix and just agree, and then we can fill the content in for group, but we kind of have the prefix.
Isn't that present tense, aren't we looking to the future for a vision statement? I mean, Suffolk means what it is right now.
But that's your
Vision
vision
statement
is
should
what
be
you want it to be then.
Think
so
of
you
it as
use
the
the tense.
24, remember how we wrote
Yeah.
the vision
Yeah, I
statement, it
don't
was
think
as
it's
if it was 2040. You're describing Southwick.
Jessica.
Well, I was just looking at our original, like our overall vision statement, so would we want to match to that tense potentially? Do you want to match that?
Yes.
What is it currently?
Yeah, I didn't.
Do you want me to read it?
At least the first sentence.
Yeah. Southwick's distinct in Massachusetts location crossing the Connecticut border makes us a desirable southern New England community.
That's a fact, it's not a vision.
Well, but
But
we
that's
can't,
like
we're not gonna move ourselves on the map.
That's like kind of the tense.
It's
How we're saying it. Like, we're saying like how it is in
What do you mean by
2040,
2040?
yes, that's how it should be right.
I think they should all match.
So we'll
Yeah,
do the best
we've
we
already
can
agreed with that.
between now and July 6th. And then we will work on having one or two people And maybe it's the, you know, the intro vision team
The vision takes
to
time.
kind of bring it together.
Send it by.
Bring it together. And then by the end of July, we'll see how that reads. I mean,
Yeah.
we're adding to it as we work along. Okay, let's see, we are finished up, I think, with that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Just one
go
last
ahead.
question about this topic. I'm wondering if I can get a little refresher on the smart aspect that some people have mentioned. Want to make sure, again, in keeping with the structure and having some cohesion.
Well, we didn't put, I don't know where that came from, because we didn't have, I don't, you might not have been here, we took goals out of the,
Incorporating it then into our strategies, and like housing incorporated it into their strategies, right? That's what you guys were kind of using as a measure, Dory and Marcus, and then Norm made reference to it as well.
We actually took our objectives out because they were not smart. We did not necessarily make our actions smart actions. We're like
So we're not,
4/5 of the way there, but we didn't design them to be smart.
okay, so we're not trying to coincide or align necessarily with smart either in objectives or strategies or actions. Okay, I
I
misunderstood.
mean, we didn't, I don't know what the group wants to do.
I think the implementation team, once they agree on what actions are, that they're sort of building into their implementation plan, can make them smart objectives and actions.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. So it doesn't make sense to kind of implement it or weave it into what we're doing at this stage. So we're not doing that. I just want to be clear.
It gets really hard with the measurable.
Well, that's it, exactly. And I was like, that's quite a bit
Without
more
knowing your
work.
resources
So,
and your funding and your.
right. So if we can avoid that.
Yeah, we're kind of at a higher level and then.
That's
it's gonna
great,
go-
okay.
yeah.
Wanted to be clear on that. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, let's move into routine business. We have a set of minutes from June 1st. Is that correct, Mr. Goddard?
Yes.
Has that copy in hand? Have people looked at June 1st? It looks like it's a fairly short set of minutes. I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes of June 1st, 2023. So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hanson, seconded by Mr. Moglen. Roll call vote on the minutes, please, Jessica.
Marcus Phelps,
Yes.
David Spina,
Aye.
Doug Moglen,
Aye.
Randy Brown,
Aye.
David DeLori,
Abstain.
Bert Hanson,
Aye.
Dave McWilliams,
Aye.
Norm Cheever,
Aye.
Patrick Jubb,
Yes.
Alita De Maria,
Abstain.
Scott Lehman,
Abstain.
Dory Boyd, Ross Terry, Joseph Parker, abstain, Corey Rowland, Marissa Cook Overgon.
Okay, with that roll call, the minutes passed by majority vote with 4 abstentions. Our last item, committee member comments. Any general comments? I believe Mr. Goddard has something, but anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay, question from Mr. Hanson.
Actually relates back to the minutes. I'm just wondering about the results of the exercise in the June 1st meeting. Is that, do we have, or we're gonna have a document of?
I took a picture of the slide, we'll put them into a formal, folder. I'll put them into something more formal.
Oh, they are, okay, great, thanks.
So Ken, you're going to send something to John to share. Summary of the June 1st.
Yeah, so what's in the Google Drive at the moment And I can, I'll share what I.
Oh, is there something from the June first?
Yeah, there's,
Oh,
like, there's a folder. There's a folder in there that is, did we hear you workshop? And that is presentation, the exercise, and the photos of the vote, the comments.
so it's available in the Google Drive.
Yes.
Okay, good. Mr. Cheever?
Yes, I was invited to present to citizens in restoring Congamon on last Tuesday night on a number of different subjects to do with the lake. But they had also asked me to give them a master plan update. So first I went through all the Congamon questions that were very interested in those, as you might think. Then I gave an update of where we are on our process. And did invite them all to our Saturday meeting. Let me forget you. And it went well.
Thank you for spreading the word to an important group. John Goddard has some administrative information.
I bring only the juiciest information to meetings. So yes. Here we are, marching our way through June 2023. We have long since eclipsed the vast majority of our phase one agreement, with one exception, and that's the housing production. So I have before me an extension form that we need to advance to the select board. That would extend the time frame for performance to September 30th this year. So unless someone corrects me otherwise, I think I'm looking for a motion from this committee to advance it to the select board for endorsement.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion made by Ross Terry, seconded by David McWilliams to recommend the extension of the contract with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to September 30th. Roll call vote.
Mark Phelps,
Aye.
David Spina,
Aye.
Doug Mogul,
Aye.
Randy Brown,
Aye.
David DeLore,
Aye.
Kurt Hansen,
Aye.
Dave McWilliams,
Aye.
Norm Cheever,
Aye.
Patrick Jubb,
Aye.
Alita De Maria.
Aye.
Scott Lehman,
Aye.
Dory Boyd,
Aye.
Ross Harry,
Aye.
Jessica Parker, aye, Corey Rowland,
Aye.
Marissa Cook Overgone,
Thank you. With that roll call vote. Motion passes unanimously. All right, as I mentioned earlier and corrected myself, the next meeting is July 6th. And are we ready for that meeting?
I have one quick one, if you don't mind.
Oh, comment additional, yes.
One comment.
Yeah.
We're coming up on appointments for boards and commissions in the town of Southwick for next fiscal year. So, as this board winds down its activities, there are plenty of opportunities if anyone on this board or anyone listening to this recording wants to serve the town of Southwick. And there's a, application form on the select board webpage that one can easily peruse to and fill out and indicate some interest in those spots. I know that for one, for example, there is an open seat that is going to be available on Board of Appeals, I believe an associate member position, and the planning board associate was just elected to a full term on the planning board, so that creates an appointed position as that associate, and that's a joint appointment of the select board and the planning board. So tell your friends, or if there's something out there that interests you, feel free to reach out to anyone, including myself, to discuss. And we can go from there. Thank you.
For the June 6th or July 6th meeting, do we want to do the work session time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So figure that in or factor that into the agenda. And hopefully we'll mainly focus on those chapters. People will have moved along on that. We'll have some sort of a feedback from the workshop that we're having here on the 17th. And any other agenda ideas? I mean, I sort of make this up. It seems like it works all right. I haven't been hit too hard. Yeah. But if you have any complaints, call John. He's the one that, you're the one that, actually, you and Megan posted, so I appreciate that. That's great. Okay, with that, entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Mr. Mogul to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Jubb. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Go forth and